Thank you very much for your presentation. My name is Kitamura. Today I'll talk about lasers. In the late 20th century and in today, it's no exaggeration to say that the development of information society, nanotechnology, and life science is all based on optical technology. One example is laser microscope. By using monochromatic and intensive light, we can see what was invisible before with optical microscope, which uses conventional white light. Another example is ICs, which are made using light lithography technology. Very small circuit with the size of only 1/10 of human hair can be made using this technology. In optical recording devices such as CDs and DVDs and Blu-ray discs, lasers from semi-conductor lasers are collected by lenses and they are irradiated to the discs. And then that reflected lights are detected by optical sensors to retrieve and store data. As I showed in these examples, we use lasers in our daily life. And in the field of optical technology, in order to make microscopes more sensitive or to increase the capacities of the memories, creation of microcondensing point is the key. However, there has been a barrier of diffraction limit. This is a focal point of conventional laser beam. This is the lens. Light waves converge with each other when the light is collected by a lens. The size of the focal point is generally same as the size of light wave. If you go a little bit apart from the focal point, then the light is dispersed, and then the focal point becomes out of focus because of the focus depth. Like in this picture, when it's in the focus, the flower looks very clear, but it's out of focus. Like the area in front of the flower, the image is blurred. Generally, we call it focus depth. Generally, the size of the focus point is about 1 wavelength, and the depth is also about 1 wavelength. So that was the limit. In order to overcome this limitation, in the past, we've taken an approach to change the color, for example, from CD to Blu-ray disc, which is from red laser to blue laser. Also, in order to solve the problem of out of focus, adaptive optics was introduced. Now, it would be nice if we can create this kind of laser beam. With this, when laser light is collected by a lens, focal point smaller than a wavelength will be created, and there will be no out-of-focus issue because the focus depth is deep. If we can create this kind of small focal point with a long depth of focus, we may be able to create a very simple device which doesn't require increase of the capacity or adaptive optics. So we are very much interested in donut beam. This beam is called radially polarized beam. The polarized light in the electric field is spreading radially from the center of the beam, as shown with those arrows. Polarized beam may be a difficult term, so let me explain. Polarized light indicates the direction of the vibration of light wave. As light has a property of same as waves, the light goes to this direction. So those are the polarized light. We can't actually detect the polarization with our eyes, but these kind of Glare-proof glasses are something related to polarized light. Sunlights are polarized in many different directions, and in hot summer days, sometimes windshield of cars look dazzling, so you can't see inside of the car. This is because various polarized light reflected on the windshield reach to our eyes. But if you wear glare-proof glasses, you'll no longer see the glare and will be able to see interior of the car. Because those glasses allows only polarized light to one direction to reach your eyes. So this kind of polarized light is very important in creating donut beam. The single robe, which is used for laser beam, is one direction. On the other hand, in donut beam, the polarized light is dispersed radially. Therefore, at the center of the beam, there is a very specific area, and that's why it looks like a donut. Now let's look at the property of the polarized beam. Now let's recall the vector that we learned at high school. The polarized light is described by those black arrows. By using the lens with high aperture, when the light is collected with this kind of lens, then the polarization will go this way. So let's apply the resolution of vector. This is the radial component, and this is the longitudinal component. Near the focal point, they converge with each other, the converge of the vector. And the radial component goes opposite to the beam axis, so they offset with each other. On the other hand, the longitudinal component are at the same direction, so they intensify with each other. As a result, even if we introduce the light as a donut beam, this has an intensity on the beam axis. So this is a very unique property. Now let's focus on the longitudinal component. When we collect the lights using the lens, the radial component is also shown here. The radial component becomes bigger. If the radial component is bigger, it becomes difficult to collect the longitudinal component. So our idea is to suppress the radial component. Then the focal point becomes very small, or 0.4 wavelength. So it is less than one wavelength. Half a wavelength. And if you go apart from the focal point, it can maintain the focus point. So it means it has a very long focal depth. So by polarizing the light to a halo shape, we can create a focal point which is smaller than the ordinary focal point. That is smaller than one wavelength. So by using the halo-shaped beam, we can create a small focal point with a long focus depth. But the radially polarized light can be described by more than two equations. It means that in order to get radially polarized beam, this kind of big machine was required. This is a machine developed by a corporation called Amada. In this machine, there are many optical systems. This is a very big machine which occupies the entire room. But what we wanted to do is to replace it with a very small tip as this one. This is the photonic-crystal laser. This is the chip that we created. This is my finger, so you can see how small this laser is. Within the semi-conductor laser, as you can see, there is a ring-shaped resonator, and on that photonic crystals are aligned. By using this system, we could create a small focus on the beam, which can create small focus with long focal depth. So in order to observe the focal point, we conducted this experiment. This is the beam, halo-shaped beam. The numerical aperture was about 0.9. We collected the light using this lens, and then we moved this focal point one by one, and then we observed the situation using CCD camera. This is the result of our experiment. The upper panels are the halo-shaped beams results, and the lower panels are for conventional beams. When you go 5 wavelengths apart from the focus, then in the case of the halo-shaped beam, the situation didn't change. But for the donut type, we couldn't see the focus at all. So we intensified the system to detect it. And after going to 10 wavelengths, the focus remained very small for the halo-shaped beam. The size of the focus is plotted here. This is the focus, and to either way it goes 10 wavelengths. And it proved that it has a property of small focus with a long focus depth. As you can see, this has a very unique property in collecting lights. And this is an application of the donut beam. This is the single robe beam. This is a conventional one. And this is the donut-shaped beam. And the experiment here is to capture the tungsten. First, let's look at what happened with single robe. As the light approaches, as the metal reflects light, we couldn't capture the metal tungsten. But on the other hand, in the case of the donut beam, when the beam approaches the metal, it can capture the metal. This technology is called light forceps. This technology can be applied to many different areas, especially in life science. And these results can be described in this analysis. This is the situation when we place the metal in single robe. The metal reflects the light, that's why it shows in red. And this is the case with the donut-shaped beam. It goes through the metal, and you see all the red colors here. And this means the light here is very intensified because the plasma vibration on the surface of the metal, it induces this plasma. And plasma, that's the property of the donut beam. By using this property, we lined up more than two metals. And then we found out that we can capture the light between the metals. We could intensify the light by 20 times. And this technology can be applied to many kinds of sensing. So we have a big dream to apply the donut beam technology. It can be used in information society, nanotechnology, and life science. By using small focus point, we can make contribution to laser microscopes or light lithography because we can intensify the lights. We can make it more sensitive, and also we can capture, rotate, or manipulate the subjects. It has a very small focus, but there is no autofocus problem. Therefore, with the technology, we'll be able to process the items to very deep. So we have made research with a big dream. And this is a research center of Dr. Noda that I have introduced to you. I was a member of this team until February this year. So lastly, I'd like to thank all the parties who had cooperated with me in this research. In Dr. Noda's laboratory, they are conducting researches of photonic-crystal laser. So let me briefly explain what they are doing in their research. This is a different type of laser from the halo type one. They are lined in 2D way. By using these round crystals, we can get a donut beam. But if those are triangle, then we can get a single row beam. The single row beams has a very strong power. The maximum output is 1.5 watt. 1.5 watt, maybe you cannot understand how big it is. So this is a very nice demonstration to show how big it is. This is just a simple black paper. And when we place photonic crystal laser, and then we switch it on, then this black paper burns. So this is the power of the 1.5 watt. It can even burn a paper. Our hope is to develop this technology so that it can be used for the metal processing in car manufacturing. And this is the latest data which has not been published yet. This is the photonic crystal, but this is a different one. As you can see, the position of the crystal, photonic crystal, is changed. And by using it, we switch on the electrode. And then we can change the direction of the laser by simply using the switch. It can be used for projectors or also for the head-mount displays. With the photonic crystal, we can make progress in many different areas. That's all from myself. Thank you very much.